What makes a story-based single-player game worth your time? Is it the length, the story itself, or just the hype going around it? I've wasted countless hours trying new single-player games, only to get bored and never come back. So in this video, I'm sharing my top 40 single-player games that actually deserve your time all the way to the end. Some of these picks might surprise you, but let's get right into it. The Witcher 3. Let's start with one that a lot of people call the greatest RPG ever made. The genius of this game is that it starts boring on purpose. White Orchard is a muddy, missing livestock and a griffin problem, and that low-stakes opening is exactly why the rest of the game hits. The Witcher 3 teaches you that a contract about a haunted well can turn into a story about grief, and by the time you reach the Bloody Baron, you realize that the side content in the game is the game itself. 10 years later, RPGs are still getting compared to this game, and most of them are still losing. Marvel's Spider-Man. If you want to scratch that superhero itch, then start with Marvel's Spider-Man. Every other Spider-Man game before made swinging around New York feel like a boring chore. Insomniac made it feel like a superpower, and people still boot up the game to this day just to swing around the city for fun. But it's more than just the web slinging. This Peter Parker is 8 years in, broke, and failing at everything except basically being Spider-Man. So you get the big hero wins and a messy human life side by side. This is the one to grab if you want the superhero fantasy done right with a story that makes you actually care. One of the easiest recommendations on this whole list. Silent Hill 2. This is true horror that crawls under your skin and stays there. The scariest thing about this game isn't a monster. It's slowly working out why James is really in this town. It's a story that messes you up once you understand it, which is why Pyramid Head still scares people who never even played the game. If you're sick of games that are just based on jump scares, this one is quite the opposite. It doesn't chase you, it waits for you. So grab it if you want fear that lingers for days, because 20 years on, it's still the benchmark for horror games. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. If you love big action movies, this is basically a game that lets you experience being the main character in one. There's no dead air in the whole game, so it never drags out for a second, and it makes you feel like you're pulling off the wild stunts yourself, without ever yanking the controller away for a cutscene. Nathan Drake's jokes still land too, which almost no modern game seems to manage, and it's still the blueprint everyone copies today with games like 007 First Light that are trying to replicate that same successful formula. Hades. Fancy a roguelike endless experience? Hades is the easiest game I can ever recommend to most people. Every roguelike before treated dying as failing. Hades treats it as a whole new scene change. You die, you wake up back home, and the whole Greek underworld have new things to say about it. So dying pushes the story forward instead of actually wasting your time. Between that and the fast fighting and the different builds that you can bend in 100 different ways, one more run truly turns into real curiosity, not a bad habit. It's one of the most welcoming games of its kind that were ever made, and the perfect first one to try. Red Dead Redemption 2. If you manage to push through the slow opening acts in the snow, Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most beautiful story games ever made. Arthur Morgan is one of the most iconic protagonists in a dying Wild West version of America. Brushing your horse and setting up camp sounds really boring until it actually clicks, and the whole journey is why you want to live this life before the ending of it all. If you only like fast action, then this game might test your patience. But if you love a good story and you want to let a game breathe, nothing else on earth hits quite like Red Dead Redemption 2. Detroit Become Human. This one's for players who love choices that actually change things in their games. 3 robots, 3 different stories, and a big chart after every chapter that shows you every path you did and didn't take. That chart itself is the trap. You finish a scene and you spot 14 different choices that you might have missed, and you instantly want to replay that mission. I've heard different people telling me outcomes I didn't even know were possible, with the game letting you entirely shape the new world reality solely based on your decisions to determine who lives and who dies. Few games commit to choices quite like Detroit Become Human. God of War. My second favorite God of War game in the entire franchise. This version of Kratos is a man who killed the whole world of gods that is now struggling to become a father, and it grips you the whole way. The fighting never disappoints, with new weapons and that same captivating lore that the franchise is well known for. It's definitely not exactly like the previous hack and slash titles in the series, but it's a very inspiring twist to one of gaming's most iconic characters, and it's one that you simply just cannot miss. Disco Elysium. For people who love to read and don't really need to shoot anything, you play a wreck detective whose own skills are 24 voices in his head, and they argue with you, lie to you, and get you in trouble. It's a murder case, but the real question is what kind of person you turn into. The game is huge, and it will not hold your hand, so if you're looking for action, you might want to skip this one. But if you want some of the deepest writing on this list, then Disco Elysium is easily going to become one of your favorite games. Elden Ring. Want an open world that is as rewarding as it is punishing? Well, this one's for you. No markers, There's no arrows, no hand holding. If you see something in the distance, you can probably go for it, but there's no guarantee that you're going to make it out alive. Elden Ring sits on the Souls-like throne as one of the most frustrating yet satisfying games of all time. This one's for people who want to explore and actually earn every single win. And if you've always wanted to try a Souls-like game but got scared off of Bloodborne and the others, I highly recommend that you start here. Batman Arkham City. I can easily put every single Arkham game on this list, but I wanted to give you guys more options, so I'm sticking to my favorite. Arkham City literally makes you feel like you are Batman. The combat is the best in any superhero game ever made, arguably maybe even better than any game ever made, superhero or not, but the city is packed tight instead of just being empty with a huge map. Even the riddles themselves respect your time, and you've got a wide variety of gadgets, upgrades, gliding, and everything that you'd ever want from a Batman game. Nothing quite scratches that superhero itch like an Arkham game does, and this one especially is going to make you think about it for many years to come. Undertale. If you think you've seen everything that games can do, think again. Undertale is one of those games that you simply have to try for yourself. Your choices matter as the game progresses, and you can get through the entire game without killing a single thing. The game watches what you do and remembers it, even the stuff that you'd rather it forget. So don't let the basic art style fool you. It's short, it looks quite retro, but it's one of the greatest gaming masterpieces ever made, and I couldn't recommend it more. Ghost of Tsushima. Do you want a samurai game that looks like a painting in motion? Ghost of Tsushima is one of my personal all-time favorite games. There's barely any forgettable moments. The samurai struggling with the concept of honor isn't exactly a new concept, but it's never been portrayed the way that Jin Sakai lives through it. From the wind being your mission tracker to the iconic duels and dialogues, Ghost of Tsushima is a must-try for everyone looking for a good escape in a single-player story game. Underneath the pretty Japanese art is a real story about a man losing himself to win. Although Ghost of Yotei arguably took every aspect of gameplay to the next level, Jin Sakai's story is what truly sets this game apart. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. From the story setup where a painter wakes up once a year, paints a number, and everyone that age dies, Expedition 33 had me hooked from the very beginning. It's a turn-based game, yes, but you're dodging and blocking in real time. You're constantly strategizing new team comps to defeat frustrating bosses like Simon. Every collectible, every cutscene, every line of dialogue adds another dimension to this fresh, stylish, and arguably one of the most decorated games in history. The story alone is guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your seat. Even if you don't like turn-based games, I'd still highly recommend you give this one a try. BioShock. Arguably one of the most iconic worlds ever built in a single-player game, Rapture is a city at the bottom of the ocean built by a man who hated rules, and you show up right as it's falling apart. The balance between shooting and using abilities, the eerie atmosphere, and the twist that gamers still talk about many years later makes this original title in the franchise a must-try and one of my personal favorites. Assassin's Creed 2. Ezio might be one of the most iconic gaming characters of all time, and it is for good reason. Assassin's Creed 2 built on everything that the original game did and gave us one of the greatest trilogies set in an old Italy that you never want to leave. Great lead character, gorgeous world, free-flowing parkour, and a closer look at the Assassin's Brotherhood makes this Ubisoft's crown jewel. Every open-world Assassin's Creed since is just a remix of this one. So if you're looking to start the series and get a real taste for what that Assassin's Creed magic used to feel like, start with Assassin's Creed 2. What Remains of Edith Finch. If you're looking for a short game that stays with you for many years after, welcome to What Remains of Edith Finch. Just around 3 hours long, but the story and pacing makes this so much better than most 60-hour games these days. It's about a family with each of their strange lives, and every chapter plays completely differently. There's no combat, there's no intense challenges, but if you want to feel something while playing a game, nothing does it better than this timeless classic. Mass Effect 2. This is the RPG with a crew that you'll actually miss once it's over. The whole game is basically you building a team for a mission that everyone expects to die on. Each character gets their own personal story that turns them from just a name on a screen into someone you truly care about. And then the finale makes all of it count. And everything you did along the way actually matters. If you're looking for a shooter RPG to check out, this is easily one of the best that were ever made. Infamous. I will never stop talking about Infamous. This decision-based superhero or villain game opened my eyes to new levels of storytelling in video games. Deciding whether you play as a hero or a menace and watching how it changes the entire city, story, and what you can do never gets old. The franchise gave us 3 more titles later, but it's still one of the most loved IPs and game designs that PlayStation has ever given us, and I couldn't recommend it enough. The Last of Us. There are simply 2 realities, the one before you've played The Last of Us and the one after. This game was the sign of a new era of gaming and levels of storytelling through game design that had never been reached before. Besides the end of the world and looming fungal apocalypse, this This classic title is really just a story about two strangers and how they end up changing each other's lives entirely. The second game in the franchise really improved combat and overall gameplay, but I simply refuse to believe there are still people out there who haven't played this gem yet. Quick one before we hit the second half of this list. Most of you watching this are probably first-time viewers, so if you're getting anything out of this video, hit that subscribe button. It genuinely helps the channel more than you think, and it costs you nothing. Now, let's go back to the list. Baldur's Gate 3. This is the RPG that says yes to basically anything you try. You want to talk your way past the boss? Do you want to shove them off a cliff? Do you want to kill the guy who gave you the quest in the first place? The game just keeps going every single time, but just completely differently. Most RPGs fake freedom, but this one actually means it, and it remembers what you did across 3 whole acts. If you've ever thought, wait, can I really do that in a video game? This is built entirely around the answer being yes, and is a must-play for Dungeons & Dragons addicts. Shadow of the Colossus. I'm really not sure how I can describe this one besides saying it's a sprint across epic boss battles. The game is essentially 16 boss fights and literally nothing else. No towns, no side quests, no enemies to farm, just you, a horse, an empty land, and 16 giants that mostly want to be left alone. Every fight is a climbing puzzle that's alive and trying to throw you off. It's over 20 years old, but it's still one of a kind. This one's for people who want art and linear storytelling without the extra noise around most story games these days. Grand Theft Auto 4. Although GTA 5 looks 100 times better and has way more gameplay depth to it, this is the GTA for people who want to arguably enjoy the best story in the entire franchise, not just the chaos and freedom. Nico comes to America chasing his cousin's stories about mansions and models and finds out that the American dream is mostly doing other people's dirty work. It's heavier than GTA 5 when it comes to the overall story, and Liberty City still feels grimy and alive. If you somehow missed this one, I'd still recommend picking it up before GTA 6 comes out later this year. Astrobot. I don't think people take me seriously when I say Astrobot is one of the greatest games ever made. From start to finish, it is probably one of the most fun-packed games on any PlayStation, with every level flexing ideas that most studios would stretch into entire games. Perhaps one of the very few games that take full advantage of all your PlayStation features, including the controller motion, touchpad, trigger levels, and more. Astrobot is just pure fun and a love letter to the legacy of PlayStation, with surprise cameos from iconic games making this experience even more satisfying. Hi-Fi Rush. This one's pure joy, and it's one of the coolest looking games on this list. It's a character action brawler where the entire world moves to the beat. The enemies, the platforms, even the background bops along, and your attacks hit the hardest when you land them in rhythm. You don't need to be good at music to get the game. The game practically guides you, but once it clicks, you feel like an absolute rock star. It's got a bright comic book style, a cocky underdog hero, and a soundtrack that actually slaps. Not too long, not too difficult, and the game is just a great time from start to finish. So if you want something loud, funny, and different from everything else on this list, Hi-Fi Rush is the right game for you. Skyrim. Okay, now this one is for people who love wandering off and forgetting what they were actually doing in the first place. The main quest in Skyrim is probably the worst part about Skyrim, and it doesn't matter at all. You set out for a marker and never really make it because a cave, a word wall, a stray dog consume your entire night. It was never really about the main story. It's about a world where getting lost is the game. It's practically on every device by now, and people still continue to buy it because nothing else scratches this open world itch quite the same as Skyrim once did and still does for many. Far Cry 3. There are a few game villains that are more memorable than the protagonists, but Far Cry 3 is definitely an exception. At the surface level, the game is really simple and is the same Far Cry formula that Ubisoft made popular, but the real reason this game stands out is Vaas. He's on screen for like maybe 20 minutes, which isn't exactly the main villain of the story, but he's still one of the best villains that gaming has ever had. The island's a proper anything can happen sandbox with straightforward outpost missions and gunfights, but if you're looking for great dialogues and a wild, unpredictable playground, Far Cry 3 is probably the best version of the franchise for you to jump into. Sifu. Welcome to the iconic fighting game that ironically never gets old. You're hunting down the crew that killed your family, one fight at a time, and the combat is all rhythm and incredibly rewarding once you nail down. But the real hook is the aging system. Every time you die, you come back older, so a single frustrating boss fight can take you from a sharp young fighter to a 60-year-old master. Push too far and it's over for good. So the game's not really genuinely easy. It wants you to learn every room instead of just mashing through buttons. But landing a perfect run after getting wrecked 20 times feels incredible. If you want fights with real weight and a game that makes you earn it with a classic vengeance story, then Sifu is the right game for you. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Every Ratchet & Clank game feels like a Ratchet & Clank game. It never disappoints. You know exactly what you're getting into when you pick it up, and this one launched with the PS5 and took the franchise a level higher. Jumping between whole worlds mid-fight with no loading sounded like a dream at the time, but it's actually exactly how this one plays out. With new characters, ridiculous weapons, and a new looming intergalactic threat as usual, this game is one of those fundamental story games that you can't not recommend when a friend asks you for something fun. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. The second Uncharted game on this list and a masterclass class in saying the perfect goodbye. The fourth adventure features a retired and married Nathan Drake that gets pulled back into the treasure hunting life, and the game actually deals with what that ends up costing him. Longtime fans will feel the ending, and first-timers will want to go back and experience the games leading up to this point. Uncharted 4 is a game that you need to play to actually understand how good it is in every single way imaginable. Dispatch. Now, let's take a break from 40+ hour games and look at something more recent. Dispatch launched last year and quickly became one of my favorite decision-based games with one of the most unique plots you could ever imagine. You're a washed-up superhero running the phone lines for a team of barely functional heroes, trying to dispatch them all across the city. The game is part story, part management sim, and somehow both halves work flawlessly together. It combines a perfect balance between a funny, sarcastic character and a serious challenge to save the city in a way I didn't know I'd enjoy as much as I ended up doing, especially as the credits roll and you find out how many other players made the same decisions that you made along the way. God of War 3. This right here is my favorite game of all time. Before there was old father figure Kratos, there was God-killing Kratos climbing Mount Olympus on the back of giants. Young Kratos gave us some of the most memorable moments, boss fights, dialogues, and complete storylines as he tore his way past every recognizable Greek mythology god that you can name to end it all. The scale of these boss fights still hasn't been topped, with each one more gruesome than the one before. Kratos like you've never seen him before in what was at the time the ending to his struggle with the same gods that made him the man he is while taking everything away from him. I can easily recommend every single God of War game in the series on this list, but if I had to pick just one, it's definitely God of War 3. L.A. Noire. I don't think anyone's quite nailed the L.A. Noire formula ever since, because this game puts you in the shoes of a detective and adds new deduction layers we hadn't really seen executed to that level before. Everything from reading tiny changes in a suspect's face to figure out if they're lying, or collecting clues and piecing them together before making conclusion. Honestly, no game's really tried it since. Cole Phelps is a flawed, sometimes unlikable lead, and the game leans into that instead of hiding it. Slow, careful casework in a gorgeous 1947 Los Angeles makes this game a refreshing time in a sea of remasters and copycats. If you're looking for something original, check out the game that popularized the press X to doubt meme, Horizon Zero Dawn. There aren't many words I can use to actually describe Horizon Zero Dawn to you. Basically, this cave girl fighting gigantic robots with a bow and arrow is one of the most era-defining games in PlayStation's new generation. In a beautiful world, despite being infested with mechanical robots and machinery, you play as Aloy, a machine hunter who can size up giant robots, rip weapons straight off their bodies, and turn them against them. And underneath it all is a mystery about the old world and how our world reached this unfortunate state. If you want a gorgeous open world with epic fights and an engaging story, then the Horizon franchise debut title is one you need to get your hands on. Assassin's Creed Revelations. If I could, I'd put the entire Ezio trilogy in here, but that would be unfair to the other games on this list. I'm only throwing in the finale of the iconic Assassin's Creed storyline. Revelations showed us a much older, wiser, and more resourceful Ezio and pieced together a beautiful conclusion to the story that captivated millions around the world and got us hooked on the Assassin's Creed franchise with Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood prior. While games like Black Flag and Origins expanded the open world aspect of Ubisoft's titles later on, Revelations is probably one of the last games that stayed true to the original Assassin formula. And for that reason, it's on my top recommended list. Death Stranding. This might be the weirdest and most relaxing game on the list. For most people looking in, it's practically a walking delivery simulator, except walking is the game itself. Reading the ground, balancing your cargo, planning a route across a river that could wreck your whole trip at surface level, especially if you have any idea how Kojima likes to pace his games or design his characters and dialogues, this game might not be for everyone. If you're looking for a unique take on open world adventures and exploration, Death Stranding is one of those games that you can't really judge until you give them a try yourself. Dishonored. This is the one for people who want to play through story games in their own way. You're a betrayed bodyguard handed a set of supernatural powers, dropped into a plague-ridden city, and every target can be dealt with however you like. Blink across rooftops and ghost past everyone without being seen, or go loud and leave a trail behind you. The world actually reacts to how brutal you are, so no two runs ever feel the same. And Dishonored rewards you for being clever, not just fast. So if you love a stealth sandbox that respects creativity, then this one is one that you don't want to miss. Portal 2. You've got a gun that shoots doorways, and every room is a physics puzzle that you solve by bending space itself. And although it might sound like just another puzzle game, once the storytelling and writing kicks in, you quickly quickly realize it's one of the sharpest and incredibly well-written games. And when you're done, grab a friend for the co-op campaign, which is a completely separate, brilliant game on its own. Portal 2 is smart, it's hilarious, and it never really bores you for a second. So if you haven't tried it for whatever reason before, I'd highly recommend you pick this one up. Cyberpunk 2077. If you gave up on this game at launch, rest assured it's a completely different game now. This is the RPG that lets you become whoever you want in the most detailed city ever put in a game. You play as V, a merc chasing one big score in Night City, and how you get there is completely up to you. Hack enemies to death from across the room, go in guns blazing, or talk your way through and never fire a shot. Your choices shape the story and the ending, and the side missions here are better than most game main plots. Night City itself is the star of the show, with its packed and fully alive state from street level to the penthouses. And on a side note, I would also highly recommend the Netflix series based on the game if you haven't watched that one. Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. You know we couldn't make this list without mentioning good old Link, the open world game that trusts you more than any other. You can walk straight to the final boss the second that the tutorial ends, because the only thing stopping you in this game is your own skill. Everything runs on physics and chemistry instead of quest chains, so every problem practically has 5 solutions, and at least one of them is dumb enough to feel like cheating. If you love solving things your own weird way and want to lose yourself in a beautifully immersive world, nothing else comes close to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And that's the list. If your favorite single-player story game didn't make the cut, drop it down below in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to know what you think we missed. And if this list gave you something to add to your backlog, hit that like button, sign up to games.gg to keep up with all the latest games and many more lists like these, and subscribe to the channel for more gaming content. It really helps the channel. Until next time, happy gaming.